So today on Simply Happy Conversations, I'm talking with James and Jules, and they're from Late Diagnosed ADHD podcast. They've been married for over 20 years, and they were both diagnosed with ADHD in 2022. So welcome, James and Jules.
Thank you for having us.
Hello.
Oh, thank you both for making the time to come and chat.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So tell us then a little bit about yourself, things that you like to do when you're both not working.
Do you want to go first, Julie?
Well, when am I not working? No. So
You're like
I do take time off, and I'm getting better at it as well. I go surfing and stand-up paddleboarding and bushwalking, and I go to the gym and I walk the dogs, and I hang out with this bloke here sometimes when he's not giving me the shits. So no, he's lovely. And yeah, like definitely lots of physical activity stuff, although I'm trying to kind of slow down and do a little bit of art as well. So I'm trying to learn how to paint watercolors, and it's really bloody hard.
Oh,
But
that's interesting.
good.
Yeah. How nice though.
Yeah, it's a good challenge. So yeah, like and the sitting still part of the doing the art is also a little bit tricky, but I figured it's also a good skill to learn.
Yeah. So do your feet underneath the table keep moving?
Oh my God, you should see what's going on down here right now. Like James is like swiveling and it's
I'm
driving me nuts.
We sort of have to, anytime we're on video, we have to let everyone know that we probably move too much. Just can't sit still. But
it's when he starts fidgeting and he hits the desk and it makes the microphone go off that I start hitting him under the desk like.
So what about you, James? What do you like to do when you're not working?
When I'm not working, yeah, look, there's not a lot of time when I'm not working either. So through the week, I just like to hang out with Jules and the dogs, and we might walk on the river down at Noosa and with the dogs. Just hang out, really. On the weekends, I like to go mountain biking, and I just like to drive my Jeep. I've got an old Wrangler convertible, and I just like to drive it around, and it makes me smile. And just bushwalking with Jules and the dogs, just hanging out
and mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
We've got a small acreage, so I spend a lot of time mowing and using the blower and annoying neighbors and stuff. So yeah,
but keeping the garden looking beautiful though.
Keeping the forest back.
Yeah. It's just about keeping the green where it needs to be over there.
Yeah. And protecting your house. Oh, that's beautiful. And I'm sure it's a bit like a mindful activity, is it? Mowing lawns on an actual ride-on mower.
Yeah, it is. I enjoy it. It's less strenuous than pushing a mower around, which when we first got here, I just used the whippersnipper to do the whole yard, and that was just nightmare stuff. And then
that's Fiji style. Like
I can just picture it.
They'll do like a whole acre with just a whippersnipper.
Yeah, it's horrible. So we invested in a ride-on, and it is great because you can't hear anything, and I get to just think about where I've been and what I need to cut.
And it has a cup holder for his beer.
And it's got a cup holder on it for my beer, and it's great. I love it. But my mindfulness thing, I think, lately at evenings is Lego.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And were you into Lego as a kid as well?
No.
It's just later in life.
Yeah, I just thought I want to build something, and it just takes my mind off everything, and I can just be calm and just follow the book, put the little pieces together.
Gives you something to fidget with.
Yeah, and I'm using my hands and my brain, and it's sometimes hard to keep focus. I just built the Seinfeld set, and there's some walls in it that are a bit dull, so it's just like brick by brick building, and it is hard to maintain focus and not be distracted, but it's a good exercise in just getting away from the TV and being just putting my mind to work and my fingers to work, like Jill says.
That's great.
It's great, and you end up with a little fun sort of thing that I either stick on the shelf and stare at, or sell it on to someone else. There's a good market for Lego.
Yeah, definitely there is. I see that from families, as well as all the shelving that they have with the ones that are displayed. So yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not going to have too many displayed. Don't worry about that. And I don't have
No,
buckets.
you're not.
I don't have buckets of spare Lego or anything. I just buy a set, I build
Yeah.
it, and then I either move it on or keep it.
But I think he's going to keep the Porsche 911 and he's going to keep the Seinfeld set. The other ones come and go, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a great way to do it. And then to be able to then afford the next one, you sell it on and get a
Yeah.
new set.
Yeah, you just put them on Marketplace.
Yeah.
They're pretty expensive, but the Seinfeld set is a deleted one, so you can't buy it new anymore. So you just have to hunt it down on Marketplace like I did, and it was unused, still in the bags. It was amazing. So that's what I like to do. Some evenings when I've got a set. I haven't got one at the moment. So,
but you know what? We're not going to lie. We're not going to bullshit. Like, we do watch a lot of TV. And we do a lot of scrolling. Like, we're not like, oh, we're like the healthy, happy people who, like, just don't watch TV and we like get outdoors and do. No, we still watch a lot of Netflix.
I love TV
at nighttime, because you need to stop and switch off.
You do, and some sometimes I guess with a brain like ours, if you're not sitting still, it's a time for us to sit still and just stare at something.
Yeah.
If you don't, I mean, what else do people do?
Do you find it really difficult to watch movies though? Long movies?
We have to have like intermission.
Yeah.
I have to be into them. If I'm not into it, I'm gone. I'm out. See you later. Yeah, I can't sit through crap movies. And
he's brutal. He'll decide whether it's a crap movie in like the first 5 to 7 minutes of a flick, and then I'll see him get the phone out and start scrolling. Like, oh shit, we've picked a dud.
That's not a good one. So maybe tell us about then why and when you got your diagnosis of ADHD, the two of you.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start because mine was first. Jules was waiting for takeaway food with my mum in Ballina, and mum just dropped into conversation that she thought I had ADHD as a child, which is a surprise to me.
But he grew out of it,
but
she said.
She's never mentioned it to me, and which is weird because she then spent the next however many years I was at school arguing with me and berating me for not doing homework and stuff, which I just couldn't do. So if she'd maybe thought of bringing it up again, but it was we could have done something about it maybe.
But it was the 1980s and things were very different there. And there was a lot of shame heaped upon parents, like a lot of finger pointing that it was something the parents were doing wrong. And it was before...
Or bad diet.
Yeah, but it was before the bad diet part of the parent guilt. It was still in the you're not disciplining them well enough part of the parent guilt era. And so, of course, like, I think a lot of parents didn't take their kids to get assessed because if they ended up with a diagnosis, like, then it's their fault.
Yeah, it's looking bad at them, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But I don't know her reasons. I honestly don't know her reasons. No. Maybe she talked to Dad about it and he said, well, hooey.
Or maybe she talked to a teacher about it and they said, no, he's not a problem.
She never talked to teachers because I didn't give her the parent-teacher slips. So it was a rare occasion that my mum and dad ended up at parent-teacher night.
Parent-teacher night. That is the ultimate.
So anyway, she dropped that into conversation. I was shocked when Jules told me some many years later, and we started on a bit of a deep dive into ADHD on the internet.
And they went, oh, that does look like you. Why don't you go and get an assessment?
Just identified with so many things, and it seemed like a reason for a lot of my behaviours. And it was just interesting and saddening at the same time. So eventually, I spoke to a GP. GP refers you, they do a quick test with you, a written test, and they can refer you to a psychiatrist, which we did.
You went to a psychologist first.
I got referred to a psychiatrist first.
Oh, okay.
In Byron Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't go.
In that time we moved. So we moved to the Sunshine Coast, and I sort of got back on the trail of who can I see, and got in to see a psychologist. And that was 5 appointments, I think.
Yeah,
pretty
that
intense,
that was
pretty
crap
expensive.
actually. Like being on a wait list to see someone for an assessment, then moving into state, and then realizing that that means you have to go on someone else's wait list for an assessment from scratch.
Yeah, big wait lists.
Plus the
But
process, like, I don't know about you, but the process to actually fill in the forms and do all the steps, it's like, can't you just tell that I've got ADHD because I can't even finish that and it's taken me this long to get to the end of part of the process anyway?
it's
That's the test.
yeah, it's a really
Should be the
fun
test.
ADHD friendly process.
Yeah.
And there's very, very long wait lists, and it's very expensive. But we were fortunate enough to each not episode, each appointment was paid, and it was spaced out so we could afford it. And eventually got my diagnosis through the psychologist, who in this country cannot write scripts for stimulants or drugs. But I was happy with that. I wasn't really looking for stimulants at the time.
But then
And
later
maybe
you did.
later I did. But that was me. So went to a psychologist, got the diagnosis, and the psychologist goes into detail about your brain and how it works. And I found out some things about my brain, and it was amazing. And then the grief sets in about what your life could have been. And here I am.
Yeah. And what about you, Jules, then? How did yours come about?
Well, the way that it rolled out with me, I've seen reflected in a lot of my female clients. It's always the mums. I don't know. I'm sure there's some dads out there as well, but I see a lot of mums in my naturopathic practice, and they often realize that maybe they're an ADHDer when they're sitting in on their children's assessments. And the same thing happened with me, except it was sitting in on James's assessment. And I was listening to him answering the questions, because there is like that one appointment where you bring in the friend or family member or loved one, and they help answer the questions. And when we were answering them for James, I was kind of secretly keeping track of them for myself, going, oh yeah, I would have answered yes to that for me, and that one, and that one, and that one. So then I went away and did a bit of reading around how ADHD shows up in women, and realized that it can often get missed because it quite often shows up completely differently to men. And there were a couple of articles that I read about like why women struggle in the workplace and how they're prone to burnout, and how they feel like they're like a giant, they've got imposter syndrome at work, and they feel like they're not hitting the mark at work. And I was like, oh my God, that's me all my life. Because I was always a shit employee, James will tell you. So I decided that once James finished his process, then we'd start on me. So then that's what I did. I went through the whole process with a psychologist first as well, because I wanted the big report that you get at the end, because it is a lot more detailed than what you get if you go through a psychiatrist. You go through a psychiatrist, you pretty much just get you get the rubber stamp. Yep, that's it. You're an ADHD, and you get a prescription. Whereas the psychologist, it was like a 6-page report, like a user manual to the brain. And it was like, oh, so, here's the areas that I excel in, and here's the areas that I've got challenges in. And there's parts of you that are doing really well on these tests, and then parts of you that kind of suck a bit. So it was really good to see, because then it's like, okay, well, these are the things that I need to get help with in my life, but these are the other things that I'm probably really good at. So yeah, I loved it. And then I got medication curious. We both went through a stage where we got medication curious.
Just as an aside, we were both diagnosed with
Combined
type ADHD.
Yeah.
So we have the same type of ADHD, but we both present very differently. So that's just something to note for people. We're all different. We all have strengths and weaknesses in places.
Yeah.
Some things that I can do well, Jules can't do, and vice versa.
Yeah, not just mowing the lawn either. So then I went to the psychiatrist. I tried out a few different medications. None of them were a good fit. None of the stimulants worked well for me. The side effects were really hectic. Didn't love it at all. And I ended up giving that away and went back down the natural path. And now I just take like a bunch of herbs and supplements, and look after my diet, my blood sugar, et cetera, get lots of exercise. But yeah, I wanted the full experience. I wanted to try out all the things. So like once I found out that that was my diagnosis, I was like, all right, well, let's see what all these stimulant medications are about then, because if I'm going to have clients in my practice who are on like, you know, Ritalin or Vyvanse, or if they can get their hands on it right now, because there's a shortage, or if they're on dexamphetamine, it's like, well, I want to know what these things do and what they feel like, and what that crash in the afternoon's like, and what it does to your personality, etc. So yeah, I gave one a go and I had really horrific side effects. So then I gave it a second type a go, still had different side effects, gave a third one a go, didn't work at all. Less side effects, didn't work at all. I was like, oh, stuff this. And so I gave it all away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? The different varieties and what works, and then what doesn't work. And even within just the same family, what can work. And even for seeing children as their hormones change, as to what drugs change for them too. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Especially the girls around
Yeah.
puberty. Watch out, everybody who has one of them in the home.
So
let me tell you, at the other end, perimenopause, also very similar.
well, then that's
also not a walk in the park.
And that's how I got my own diagnosis, was because of that. And so what about for both of you? How do you manage your ADHD symptoms that maybe you don't particularly, you know, enjoy so much? What sort of things do you do to help you manage?
Well, I don't manage, really. To be perfectly honest, I still struggle daily with symptoms, and I also take a bunch of supplements that possibly help. I don't really know. Some of them maybe more than others, but I don't manage. The only thing I do at the moment for memory is my whiteboard, and everything goes on the whiteboard that I need to do. If it's important, it goes on the whiteboard, and we've got a separate whiteboard for the podcast, because I just don't remember things. And I honestly, I struggle daily, but I'm trying to not be hard on myself. Whereas years ago, I would always be really hard on myself, and negative self-talk was rampant, as it is for a lot of ADHDers. And I've just tried to learn to be a bit gentler with myself. Still have the symptoms, but I'm not berating myself for them. So, and that's a work in progress.
So would you say that the benefits of being formally identified as ADHD is like the negative self-talk and around those things for you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It has helped enormously, because my self-esteem was fairly low, because I always felt that I needed to do better at a lot of things, and I always asked myself why I can't do a lot of things, which leads to just a really negative view of yourself, and depression, and just wondered why I can't be passionate about anything, because I haven't been passionate about anything in my life, because my brain won't let me. It just moves on to things. So it's a relief, and it's a great tool for awareness, so that you can recognize things and see it for what it is, and learn to deal with it.
Yeah.
I tried medication as well. It was pretty good, actually, but it tends to wane a bit. Your body gets used to it, and then it's barely noticeable. Stimulants made me a bit aggressive, and
he was just a bit more angry than usual, and it wasn't fun.
No, and I was a little explosive, but I could see how people would enjoy them and use them. But I was a barista at the time. I didn't really need stimulants to help me focus. I was just doing the job, and I knew how to do it, and I did it well. So I didn't feel that the side effects were worth.
Yeah.
That just wasn't worth it for me. Didn't make my life so much better that it changed who I was. So I just decided to be medication free for now.
Yeah. But trying the herbs instead. And it's funny, as soon as you run out of the herbs, that's when you notice that they actually are doing something too. So yes.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be the case. I mean, I've taken so many supplements every day for so many years because Jules is a naturopath. I'm no doubt I'm in a better place mentally and physically for it.
And with diet as well, because
diet.
You eat pretty well.
So I guess my coping thing is diet and exercise.
Exercise is your coping thing too. Like he's better after he's been on the mountain bike. He's just a new person.
I suffer a lot from paralysis, ADHD paralysis in the mornings. If my support system is changing or Jules isn't here, can really struggle to achieve anything some days. I struggle to even get out of the house because I can't decide. I might have a few things that I might like to do, but I just can't decide on any of them. So that's a big struggle.
Yeah, or even just going through the process to get out of the house. It's like overwhelming. It's like, oh, well, first I have to feed the dogs.
Yeah,
then
steps.
I put the dogs out for a wee. Then I've got to feed myself. Then I've got to have a shower. It's like, no, there's so many steps. Like, can I just, and then you'll just sit on the couch and like not do anything for a little bit. And then the clock just keeps ticking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's isn't it that a time blindness as well that then hits that's, oh gosh, I've got to be at work in a minute. What about you, Jules? What's some of the things then that you help manage your symptoms?
It's funny because I think I was already managing ADHD long before I knew I had ADHD. I just didn't have the name or the label to put on it. Like I was already finding that I was less anxious and less fidgety, like if I was taking my zinc and my magnesium, or if I was starting to, if my mental health was starting to get out of hand, then I knew that I had to look at what my gut was doing and maybe like test my gut and see if there was like a bacterial overgrowth and deal with that. So I'd always be like, oh yeah, like I've got a zinc deficiency, or I've got a gut overgrowth, or I've got this, or I've got that. And it would always like make me feel more energized. It would remove the brain fog. It would improve the focus. It would help the mental health when I looked after myself and did all those things. I just didn't realize that what I was actually doing is managing ADHD at the same time. So I think I've always been doing the herbs and the supplements and the diet. Like if I eat a diet that's really conducive to really stable blood sugar, like if I eat lower carb and lower sugar during the day and I eat my carbs, with dinner instead, I find that I can concentrate at work like right into the afternoon. But if I don't, like if I had toast for breakfast, like
I love carbs,
I'd be screwed. Whereas James doesn't have that. He doesn't have those like wild ups and downs with his blood sugar, but I do. And when I have those downs, I completely fog over, lose focus. Like I feel like I'm wading through pea soup. And that's no good when you're like seeing 6 clients on Zoom that day. Like you can't afford for that to happen. Or if I'm like writing a blog post or trying to get anything done, just even answering emails. Actually, emails are the worst, right? Yes. At least when you're seeing a client on Zoom, you got like a human to interact with and it kind of G's you up. But like sometimes when I'm left to my own devices, that's the worst.
Yes, and that would be the last thing on the to-do list to do, isn't it?
Right. So like I've always learned how to structure my working week as well. And like we said before, like I am a terrible employee. And we know this, but I worked that out the hard way by going through a bunch of different jobs that were not a good fit. And so I work for myself. So I've worked with business coaches who've helped me to structure my week to make it more conducive to like how my energy levels roll. What I didn't realize we were doing at that time is we're structuring the week to make it ADHD friendly. And like one time I was sitting in on James's psychology appointment and she was drawing up this weekly calendar of like how you could structure your week to make it more ADHD friendly. And like you could move this here and you could do the fun things here and do the hard things when you've got more energy here. And I was looking at it going, that's how I do my week already. Holy shit, I'm already doing it. I just didn't know what was really going on under the surface that was causing me to need to do all of this stuff.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? It's that eye-opening, the benefits of knowing and having the formally identified. is then, okay, yeah, this is why I've actually been doing these things all my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
it's-
like I feel
Yeah.
better when there's no clutter, right?
Yes, yes.
You'll understand
Yeah,
this.
definitely.
This is your jam. But like if there's clutter in the house, I can't work. And
Yeah.
working from home, like that's a disaster. So I have to try and keep everything clean and simplified. Otherwise, it's like my brain scrambles and I feel my cortisol rising. And I even found like this study on PubMed that actually showed that you've got more stress hormones when there's more clutter around.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
It's actually been documented.
Yeah.
But for us, like that's a disaster. Like if you
For
work
you.
for me,
Not for
but
me.
he's
I don't mind
but see,
clutter.
he's okay with clutter.
Yeah, it's
I
interesting.
don't love
We're
it,
like
but
sometimes we're like the odd couple, even though we've got the same type of ADHD.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't love it, but I can't be bothered organizing time to fix it. So I just
You don't get that dopamine rush from doing it, like maybe
no
Jules and I do.
dopamine
Yeah,
there.
there's
No,
nothing for
There's
you.
none.
I learned a term. I was at a seminar the other week, and it's Michelle Livick. She's from the Neurodivergent Woman podcast, and she was calling it a dopamine desert. And I'm going to adopt that term. I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
that is good.
dopamine desert. You're just like crawling through, just like, where's the dopamine here?
Oh, I like that. That's really good. That's a great analogy as well. So then tell us about the podcast, because obviously then, James, that is something that you're passionate about, isn't it?
Yeah, for now. No, I am. I am. It's helped me find some purpose I didn't really have before, and it just came about because I was looking for just information about late diagnosed people. So
There's plenty of info for mums and kids and
Yeah,
parenting and
heaps.
yeah.
But if you're an adult who's lived your life a certain way and then you get diagnosed, and it opens up all these questions and all these emotions, and it's just a roller coaster. You're just up and down and up and down, and blaming and anger and grief and all these things. So I was looking for information from my perspective to help me out, and there just wasn't any. It was just barren, and I tried a few podcasts. I'm not a podcast guy. I'm going to put it out there.
Doesn't listen to podcasts.
When
Does
you
have
listen
a podcast.
When you listen to podcasts, that means you're sitting still or doing something. I don't know, but
No,
anyway,
you listen while you're driving.
I'd
and
listen while I
talking.
drive.
I listen to
Yeah.
the car when I'm driving.
He's a car guy.
So anyway, I tried a few podcasts, didn't like them for some reasons. Either the person's voice annoyed me or the content was just giggly and stupid, so I didn't like it. And
so James has got some autistic tendencies as well. So he can be quite particular, and if
I'm
he
very
does,
black or white.
Yeah, you know what you like and what you don't like. Yeah.
It's immediate though. Like I said, like he'll decide within a few minutes whether a movie is crap, whereas I'll like optimistically wait for it to get better. Like, yeah,
No.
so he'll start listening to a podcast and like within a few seconds he'll be like, nope.
Yeah. I just don't, if I don't like something, it's very quick for me to decide. So I just couldn't find anything that really rang true with me. So I jokingly sort of said, I'm going to do a podcast. And Jules went, don't be stupid. You can't do a podcast.
I still don't think that he keeps telling this story. I don't think that's what I said.
You did. It was, well, look, It may not have been those exact words, but it was something along those lines of.
I think it was more along the lines of, well, you can't do it on your own.
No, it was something along the lines of, surely you jest, kind sir, or something. But anyway, so she said, you can't do it. And I thought, well, no, it's true. I probably can't because I don't know how to do it. And then Jules got on board, and
because I've got podcasting experience. I've had my own podcast before, and so I was like, yep, can do it, know exactly what the process is. Yeah,
so we put it together, and with Jules's genius help, we've made this little podcast.
You mean with our editor Sarah's genius help? We've got an editor.
Yeah, but that's later. I haven't reached that point yet. So Jules put together all the artwork and the photos, and it's brilliant, and I love it. But it's heaps of work, and it's really hard to stay focused on it, and it's tricky,
But we've just given ourselves permission to not be consistent with it. If we miss a week here, a week there, or in the case of recently, 3 weeks in a row.
We've got ADHD, sorry.
It's
Oops.
okay.
Go listen to something else this week. We will be back, but yeah, we've got to look after ourselves first, and we both have full-time jobs, and this is the passion project, and it's like we'll pop up when we pop up, and hopefully we'll pop up right when someone needs to hear it.
And it wasn't jumping on bandwagons. It wasn't a way to make money. It wasn't like, wow, we could monetize this or anything. It honestly just came from inside trying to get people's stories out. And we both decided as well that we didn't want it to be too self-helpy. We didn't want to be too, you know, I don't know. So we kind of just decided that it should be good if it's just real chat. Just us chatting about stuff, and then occasionally we have a guest chatting about stuff.
And then occasionally we'll talk a little bit of science or a little bit of self-help, but not too much, because we don't want to be that. No,
and people have gravitated to it and like it, and I just don't want people to feel alone in their diagnosis and finding out all this stuff. They can listen to us rabbit on, and
we want people to just feel like they're sitting at dinner with us, asking us what it's like.
That's exactly what it is like. That's how I feel. I feel like when I'm driving my car and I'm listening, I'm like, oh, it's like they're just next to me in the car, talking behind me and having a laugh. So yes, you do a great job, and that's exactly what it's like for me.
Yeah, just want people to hang out and have a chat. That's all. Because we're not experts, we're not psychologists, and we say that at the start. You know, we're not qualified to give, you know, earth-shattering advice or anything, but it's just, we might have the same symptoms, we might suffer the same things, so let's just talk about it.
Yeah, and if it builds community and it helps people to feel less like a freak or less alone, then that's a good thing. And we also wanted it to be something that people could share with their family and friends who might be neurotypical, who want to know what it feels like to be an ADHD, or want to know what that person's going through. We wanted it to be something that people could hand to their friend and go, listen to this. This is some real chat about what it's like to be diagnosed at this age.
Yeah, and that's good. Yeah, and I think that's what you do a great job of making it like something that you could share with someone who just wants a little bit more information, not sciencey and over the top, but just like a casual chat.
Just to chat about how things that we suffer with, and because that was something that came up, I think, and it comes up for a lot of people when they get diagnosed. They want to tell everyone about it.
But people say some weird things.
But people don't really care. You know, people just go, oh, okay. Well, they say, oh, yeah, I always thought you were a bit like that.
They'll say, oh, everyone's a little bit ADHD.
Yes, that's the usual.
Yeah, and they don't really, and I guess people will never understand the depth of the stress you might have been under, and the depth of the pain and grief and you know, the whole life of suffering, basically, for some people. And for some people, they suffered terribly, losing jobs and relationships and family, and then they've finally got an answer and they want to tell everyone, but a lot of people just go, whatever. So if we can get across some of the pain that we've had and some of the wins, some of the good things and the bad things, and this is kind of how our brain works, maybe people will understand a bit more.
Yeah, that's great. So how can people find it? What is it, and where is it? James, are you going to be sharing that for us?
Do you want me to do it?
Just Google it. Have I mentioned that memory is my absolutely worst?
Working memory.
Yeah.
No, I'll do it. This is our running joke, but it's actually a running joke because it's literally real. He can't remember.
Honestly, so I can't remember, and I don't think to write it down because I can't remember to write it down.
So, let me do it. So you go to the interwebs, dear listener, and you go to latediagnosis.adhd.com. All right. Now, if you want to follow us on Facebook, we are Late Diagnosis ADHD. Jeez, I nearly screwed that up myself. Or if you want to find us on Insta, it is LD_ADHD. But like, if you just want to listen to the podcast, like you just like go to Apple or Spotify and do a search for LD ADHD and like we'll pop up. So
yeah, and I'll share all those in the show notes. I was just teasing you, James, because
that's
you
okay.
do
you
at the
heard
end
it
of each
every week. And one
every
week I
week.
wrote it on a post-it note and he got it right and it was fantastic, but I didn't do it for him today.
No.
We shouldn't use the same joke every week, but it's just so stupid that I have to laugh at myself, right?
Exactly. And I had to
but
do it because it's so funny and it just makes me laugh every time I'm driving and I hear
One day he's
you
going to
say
get it.
I honestly wish I could, but
Yeah.
maybe one day.
No, I completely relate as with, yes, memory things like that, short-term memory things, unless I visually have it written down in front of me. Thank you so much for your time, but also sharing and being so vulnerable around your story as well. It's great. And I'm sure there's going to be people there who will be like, oh, I've got to listen to this now. I've got to go and listen to their podcast.
We hope so.
Yeah.
We hope so.
Yeah. And if you like it, share it. And
definitely
if you don't like
review it.
Don't share it.
Yeah, if you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah.
Keep it to yourself.
Find someone else. Thank you to both of
if you do, drop us a line, contact us. We love to get feedback and we love
like messages.
hearing stories about people's journeys with it.
Yeah, and James loves the emails, so send him an email as well. That would make his day.
He hates the word journey.